We are here today with Dogan Nolan, which is, I would say, a technologist in a lot of different ways, but as well a thought leader. He is as well the Chief Technology Officer at Invstr and one of the leading people in the organization. And we're going to talk today about different areas. I think you have quite a lot of expertise and as well a big career in terms of your background, both in technology and strategy, working with finance and technology, and as well as a thought leader in terms of FinTech. So I would like to start, and thank you for being here. I would like to start with your background. So can you tell us about your background and education to start?
Dennis, I'm a graduate of University of Rochester's Institute of Optics, where I specialized in physical optics. Back in the 80s, those were the lasers, as you would imagine. And then I went on to the Simon School of Management at the same school, where my study was quantitative finance and management information systems, IT. After graduating, I worked for about 15 years in the family business, which was primarily downstream petroleum, refining and marketing, as well as some other business lines that had included at the time setting up the first private equity fund in Turkey, building the Turkish Marks and Spencer franchise, building a couple of insurance companies, and running some tourism businesses. So I was lucky to experience many different industries, and in most of them my role was /finance/IT. So I was tasked with the role of optimizing systems, optimizing the business, and building the proper IT infrastructure to make the business perform better. After that, around 1998, I set up with a partner of mine a software business that predominantly catered to the securities industry in Turkey, be it buy side or sell side, asset managers, brokerage businesses, mutual fund managers, etc. And I got out of that business about 4.5 years ago, and met Kerim, who's the founder of Invstr, and we embarked on this journey at Invstr. So that's my background.
Quite impressive. So one question that I have for you, because you've been in the board of 3 different areas that normally they are divorced. So one is management, the other one is finance, and the other one is technology. Although a lot of people try to unite them, they're still somehow not as united. So how has been your kind of bridge between these 3 completely different areas, but of course complementary, of course?
The bridge is the proper term. Basically, in large organizations or organizations that do not provide a bridge, these disciplines form silos. And then you start getting the silos not talking to each other and having different agendas. And that creates a lot of problems. In fact, it leads to a deficiency in coordination within the organization and the alignment of incentives within the organization. Back when I was an MBA student, one of my professors was someone named Michael Jensen. And he was one of the founders of the agency theory, which basically is involved in aligning people's objectives with the objectives of the organization, be it through remuneration, be it through other mechanisms, be it through building organization structures that allow you to do that. So within that context, I was advised when I was a kid to be able to provide that bridge, understand enough and be as good as the IT guys, understand enough and be as good as the finance guys, still form that link along with the other disciplines, be it marketing, be it production, and that depends on the industry, of course, and be able to coordinate efforts. And that, in turn, gets you better performance out of any organization.
Very good. And so one thing that you, of course, right now you are CTO and you are quite deeply involved in technology. How did you pass through this background in finance, which is quite substantial, and as well education in technology, to go much more into the technology, but without, of course, forgetting the bridge? Because technology in finance has been kind of, especially in the last 10 years, has been profoundly disruptive, but if we be honest, probably 90% of the financial organizations are still struggling to just getting the basics. Yeah.
That is a very fair comment. The reason that I'm lucky in Invstr is we were able to start with a clean sheet of paper. So we don't have a baggage of decades of investment made into systems and operations that are, best can be termed as legacy. The other factor that is very important here is the factor of technology innovation and the technology implementation cycle getting much shorter. When I was a young guy, a typical implementation cycle, these were the IBM days, okay, it was 3, 5, 7 years in implementing a new system across an organization. Right now, with all the new tool sets and the new technologies, as being in the cloud or various other technological stacks, these allow you to actually build up technology solutions in terms of months, not years. So that allows you be sync with the market, the leaders of the market, and B, it allows you to actually leapfrog in front of them. But if I had started an Invstr from a very classical background with a lot of legacy systems, it would have been much harder. I would be basically, tearing down things before building anything.
So yeah, the legacy nightmare. Let's put it that way. So very important before we go to Invstr. So how do you see at the moment all the present biggest challenge in terms of fintech? Because at the moment there's like you mentioned, the big players with legacy systems and a lot of other issues on the legal and compliance and everything else, and as well even psychological because there's a lot of weight as well. And then we have young players that are really trying to push things forward, and these players are more or less playing with the big ones. And then we have a more disruptive section of the financial industry that is kind of related with all these digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, which is much more disruptive, but as well as starting to lead, I would say, the pack. And then we might even have a fourth level, that is the AI-driven fintech world. So how do you see this because everything is working at the same time? And,
Correct.
Yeah.
Basically, you have described a very interesting market asymmetry. You have the existing players who have brands, balance sheet power, i.e. money, and therefore they have the capability of originating transactions in financial space. They unfortunately don't have the new technology or the agility that it has to be associated with the new technology or with the demands of the younger generations. On the fintech startups, you have the agility, the innovation, the breakthroughs, but they rarely have any origination capability of any significant size. So they bring ideas to the market, but they don't have the balance sheet and the expertise and the brand name to push that out to people. So this is quite specific to the finance industry, because in a lot of industries that have been disrupted, a utility approach to providing a product or a service, let's take example of Uber, is rather quickly possible. But in the finance, the idea of the brand name, the trust associated with the brand name, the size associated with the power of the brand name in terms of financial power, in terms of financial might that provides the trust, and the regulatory framework that sits on top of it that enhances the trust. You don't need them when you're doing a taxi service. In finance, you do. In financial products, you do. So we have this asymmetry that is on the verge of being broken up. There are bridges that are being built. So both sides need each other, or both sides need to address their deficiencies to overcome the competitive pressure of the other side. So a typical fintech business, a startup, is not your typical door-to-door dry cleaning service startup. It requires much more time, it requires much more patience, and it requires significantly more capital. And it better have the trustable brand name to go along with it if it thinks that it can actually reach a significant level of origination, i.e. number of customers. So in the fintech world, you have to play it carefully, looking at the classical factors of success, as well as bringing that innovation and disruptiveness in. Otherwise, the fintech world is just a statistical aberration in the financial industry.
Completely. Very good points. So another question right now, mostly in terms of the present challenge and opportunities, because in the end of the day, there's all these kind of layers of technologies, but as well a big challenge for organizations, especially new startups, to get into a market, to create their audiences. How do you see that part, especially someone like you that came from a business, financial, and as well technological part?
Well, the key word here is patience.
Yeah.
And the other key word is what I would call guerrilla marketing. Okay? A brand is built with interactions with your starting set of customers which generate positive EQ for the customers. When you start achieving that, you can start playing the guerrilla marketing and capture individual pockets here and there that takes you up to a next stage, at which time you can start using the nuclear weapons of marketing, that mass marketing through various channels, dominant social media attacks, etc. But if you start doing that on day one, if you have 10 customers and you are doing a huge social media campaign, you lack the brand power. You're just one of the other hundreds of people advertising in that noisy space, and it doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't build the brand. I was lucky enough in my business career to build several brands in several markets in my lifetime. It is a patience game. It is a success upon success construction game, and it takes time. And you have to listen to your customers and understand what they want, understand what delights them, and then adapt the product accordingly until you reach the critical mass. There is no shortcut here. There is no such thing as, hey, we built this app, it has 200 million customers. Great. Users, let's say, better word than customers, because most of those customers are not paying anything. So, and then the whole challenge of monetization begins. Look at Twitter. I think it's one of the best examples of this story. Huge take-up, 400 million users now. They still haven't cracked the monetization angle, because I do believe they did not include it as part of the delightful customer experience in the beginning. So the current 400 million people, if you start bombarding them with a lot of, completely unrelated ads in their Twitter feed, well, they get turned off. You create negative EQ. So it's a fine balance, sir.
Yeah, completely. And Twitter is a good example as well of a platform that was disrupted with their own audience from the beginning. So that brings precisely to Invstr, because Invstr is I would say, probably one of the most sophisticated apps in the financial investment landscape, because it comprehends a social network, a gamification part of investment, so investment games and trading. It includes as well real-time data. It includes as well a lot of dashboards and leaderboards that can be used in terms of data profiling and segmentation for the users, and a lot of other things that you're working on. Can you tell us, in terms of the foundations of Invstr, you are the architect of the technology, and as well, as you mentioned before, you started without a legacy system. So what were your basis to create this technology and this platform?
Okay.
And how you see it going forward, because there's a lot of new things coming.
Basically, in my years of servicing brokerage businesses and asset managers, etc., or people who are selling services for an investment account, that's the basic product we're talking about. I've seen two things. There were beautiful back-ends, front-ends, channels that allowed you to transact, and they had no customer management capability on them. A customer was just a number and a balance and set of transactions. And on the other side, there were a lot of very successful businesses who had great CRM systems that knew the customer, profiled the customer, segmented the customer, and provided the appropriate feedback and interaction with the customer, but lacked this finely honed transactional system which delivers the product at the minimum cost at the best speed. So this is, again, you're coming from the same background, you understand what I'm saying. Basically, the typical retail broker zigzags from one end to another depending on where they are. So with this clean sheet, we said, let's build something that addresses both. Let's build something that gives us a complete 360 view of our users as soon as they touch our app, so we know what they consume, what they read, what they ignore. At the same time, provide them with content and market data that is, let's call it the state of the art, the best available. That's why we have more than 50 content feeds that are blended in, allow you to search in real time across them, be able to see real-time streaming data as if you have a Bloomberg terminal in your pocket. At the same time, you can do technical analysis if you're into that, or if you can do charting, comparative charting to see the trends, and alongside reading about what other people are commenting. So we created a private social network that is the extension of a classical CRM system. At the same time, we created a well editorialized, selected source of high quality financial information that is delivered in real time to a phone or a tablet. That platform allows us to democratize access to information for the person on the street. It also allows us to identify our brand name with reliable information and a reliable experience. And also allows us to fully monitor and profile the people who like and use our app. Remember this, the app that is currently out there is our third version. Right now, we believe it has reached a certain level of maturity, and we believe it is time that we can start embedding actual financial products onto it that are of such quality to be associated with the brand name that we have nurtured for the last 4 years with marketing, with PR, and with mostly customer experience, positive customer experience. That's what Invstr is. And again, we were lucky enough to identify this and build it with all the, Model 2017 technology that allows us to build this rapidly.
So on the Invstr, so one part that is particular for me, fantastic, is the gamification part.
Okay.
And I know that you're working a lot on that project. So can you tell us on that part of the games? Because that's one thing that at the moment the retail trading industry and investment is going through a very big disruption from a legal standpoint, and there's a lot of still almost an heritage of spamming, and as well a lot of affiliate, not necessarily the best for the users.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the Invstr gamification is done on a completely opposite way. It's about education,
Mm-hmm.
about creating as well a profile. Can you explain that from a technology and from a user perspective?
The gamification in the app is designed to expose you, the user, to the real volatility and the change of direction that the financial markets are born with and inherently carry, which for a starting user, it's not evident. So the first game, which what we call the investment game, teaches this volatility and teaches this change of direction that is a result of the market's reaction to incoming information. Whether macro, whether company base, whether for a commodity, whatever. That starts teaching the user about timing, which is very critical in making investment decisions. And once that user reaches a certain level of experience, i.e. some expertise on the typical timings, the typical cycles. For example, one of the first things they discover that there is a quarterly earnings report that comes out, and there's a lot of interest just before and after that because of the information effect of that earnings report. We also show them a prediction game where we do a gentle introduction into the future curve. That is, yes, in the short term, this security will increase in value, but in the medium term, because of another information effect, its price can go down. So we want them to actually think in stages into the future, short term, medium term, long term, and base their projections accordingly. This twin simulation using real market data, not generated random numbers or anything, is one of the best ways to expose an investor into the dynamics of a financial market. And it's also a great place for the intermediate level investors to test their strategies out without actually losing money and without actually incurring huge losses or unexpected wins. Both are dangerous. So over time, we feed these game players with the state-of-the-art data and the state-of-the-art information so they can make better judgments and predictions and play the investment game better. We wrap this around with two layers. One of those layers is the leaderboards, where we tell them how they're doing with respect to other people in the investor community. And the second wrapper over this, we, through our social network infrastructure, we allow them to share their ideas and their insights with others and start a dialogue. And that can be done with their feeds, investment feeds as we call it, something very similar to a Facebook feed, or through the inbuilt chat mechanism, or through the inbuilt community rooms that they can create to have such discussions and share charts, news, and other information that we provide.
Very good. Well, there's a lot of things here to ask. I think we are in around half an hour. So what I would suggest is for the people that are listening to us, if you could explain how they can get Invstr, and as well spell the way it's written, because there's a lot of mistakes on that. And as well your Twitter handle, a bit of information where people can contact you and contact Invstr.
Well, downloading Invstr is quite easy. If you have an Apple phone or a tablet, you go to the iTunes App Store and type INVSTR, 6 letters. And we're there, and you can download our app, and you can sign up either socially, i.e. using one of your social signups, or directly with an email and a password. On Android, it's exactly the same, Google Play Store, and you can download from there. We also have a very great website where there is a lot of interactive content about various videos with experts, various articles and blog entries about where we think where the markets are going. So they're welcome to visit us at invstr.com. And they actually will find the download links to the app stores there as well, instead of searching for it.
Okay, well, I thank you so much for this. Of course, there's a lot of things we would talk, but probably will be a second one. Today with more contextualizing Invstr and yourself. Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
My pleasure. Thank you.